Hi, and welcome back to session 6. This one is titled Sacred Time. Time isn't what you think. And on our ongoing theme of comparing divine intelligence to artificial intelligence, that will be comparing spiraling holy time versus collapsed real-time feeds. Divine intelligence time means every cycle of time offers a doorway, not just a date on a calendar. Like Shabbat and the Hagim, the holidays, which reoccur as sacred spirals. On the other hand, collapsed real-time feeds means the way social media or AI platforms show a constant, endless stream of updates, everything mashed into the now. Instead of moving through time in cycles or stages, it collapses all moments into a single scroll with no past or future, just an endless present, like standing still on a treadmill that never stops. Always now, never holy. This is kind of like comparing doors versus loops. Divine intelligence says sacred time opens doors. AI time is an infinite loop of scrolling with no arrival. We usually think of time as a straight line, linear time, past, present, future. However, in mystical Judaism, it's said that time is a spiral. Every Shabbat, every holiday is not a memory, but it is a re-entry into the original energy of that moment. When we walk into Shabbat, we are carrying the whole week's stress. But as the candles are lit, the air itself feels different, like time had shifted. The Zohar says that Shabbat is the soul of the week. It connects heaven and earth. I'd like to explain this a little bit, how that actually works. There's a famous image associated with Jews called the Star of David. Star of David is actually a double delta. Delta is a Greek letter, which by itself is like an arrow. But Jews do not use the arrow because the arrow by itself is idolatry. It suggests an independent force outside of the scheme of creation. Judaism is much more like yin and yang, that it actually has a double delta. There is one which is going up and the other which is coming down, and the two of them are in harmony. The higher one is heaven. The function of heaven, which is spirituality, is that it looks to find a home in the physical world where it can dwell. The earth, which is physical, looks to be able to elevate itself to a spiritual existence. This happens with the 6 points which correlate to the 6 days of the week. The 6 days of the week are also correlated to the 6 positions or dimensions of space. For example, now I don't know if this is true, but somebody once, a friend of mine from the BBC told me it, so I'll repeat it because it's cool. He told me that the word news is actually an acronym for North, East, West, and South. So you have North, East, West, South, that's 4, up is 5, and down is 6. Those are the outer points of the star. To be able to move in space requires time. So you could look at my hand here and you could say, well, that hand is about a foot one from the other, maybe a foot and a half. Or you can say that one hand is about a second from the other. We say this actually when we drive cars, miles per hour. There's a relationship of time and space. So therefore, the 6 days of creation are the enablers to go out into the 6 directions of creation where we perform. But there's a 7th point of the Star of David, and that's the center. That's Shabbat. That's why Shabbat shares the same root in Hebrew as the number 7. And it also comes from the word shev, which means to not move, that there's activity through inactivity. By not doing something, you are actually doing something. On a very deep mystical level, we are told that Shabbat is the temple, the Beit HaMikdash of time. There's also the Beit HaMikdash of space. There was the initial tabernacle, the Mishkan, and then there was the first temple and the second temple. These are temples in space. But the performance of building them were guided by 39 algorithms, 39 formats through which Everything came into creation. In fact, they're the same 39 that God, so to speak, used to create the world as well. But those same 39 which build the physical temple, they are also used to build the spiritual temple of Shabbat. Those of you that are old enough to remember when you had photographs and you sent them to be printed, they had to make a negative. A negative was a reverse of the image that you saw. So it went from what you saw to what the opposite, and then what it comes back. Same thing here. There is the 39 ways we build the temple physically, and then on Shabbat, by actually not doing the 39, the energy, because, I'd like to make a fire, but it's Shabbat, I can't. What happened to that energy? I was about to light a fire, but I was stopped. The energy is elevated. It still needs an outlet. It goes into the higher world, and it builds through the 39, the temple in heaven, the spiritual one. This is why we're told that Shabbat is like a bride, a kala. The sages would go and they would greet Shabbat like a queen or a bride, showing time itself can be relational. A guest we welcome. The Balatanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, says that time itself is a creation. Shabbat isn't really a rest day. It is a different frequency of reality. Imagine standing on a spiral staircase. Every year you circle back to the same point, Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, but at a higher level. You're not repeating, you are ascending. The Medrash says each holiday is a portal to the original divine light that once shone. Time zones, just like midnight, arrives at different moments globally. Divine time opens portals we step into. So what is our practical takeaway from all of this? You don't have to create holiness. You just have to step into it when it arrives. Shabbat and holidays are doors in time, waiting for you to walk through. When we sanctify the new moon, it's God's way of showing Moshe that the new moon, and says, this is how you sanctify time. Human beings are empowered to declare sacred time itself. The Baal Shem Tov told his students that simple Jews who sanctify Shabbat elevate time as much as great scholars. Holiness in time is available to all.